questions that you have
Yeah,
received,
yeah.
and we'll
No,
start with the
no,
basic
I
question
haven't received
first.
questions
Yeah.
in the sense I have received from Hansraj saying that what he will do. Customers, he has a question on customers mostly. Okay.
Okay.
So he has a startup in agri-tech and he wanted to understand whether different customer segments to be defined or his customer is farmer, his customer is FPOs and some of those things. So I did respond to him. I told him to send his pitch deck plus BMC plus he only has sent a pitch deck. I couldn't yesterday I was busy couple of days, so I couldn't really respond back to him. But if he's on the call, I can answer that. See, in the customer segments, which is one of the first block of business model canvas, you really need to define the different customer segments which are unique in nature. So it is like you might need to look at all your customers where whom you are selling to and who is your customer base and target customer base, and out of that identify the uniqueness for them. So even in the customer segment of B2C, suppose you are selling it to a consumer who is a human being, there still could be multiple customer segments. I took an example in the video about a bank. Okay, it's a bank is providing services to retail customers as well as HNI customers. Both are human beings, but they are corporate customers who are corporates, but they are also managed by the human being. But if you look at in all these three scenarios, the services are different. There are some common services, but they are different services. So each is a separate customer segment. A retail banking customer is a separate customer segment. A HNI is a separate customer segment, and corporate is a different customer segment for a bank. So you really need to look at what all the unique features or unique. I think Sudhir might cover some part of that in next his video is. When we talk about customer jobs, basically you also need to do customer persona. Okay, so you need to define unique characteristics of a customer persona, and see that each of that customer segment is defined in your customer segment block. Okay. Coming back to recap, I will in case some of them have not been able to look at. There are 9 blocks of BMC business model canvas, and all these 9 blocks are important. Whereas the more right hand side mostly deals with the customer and the revenue. The right hand side block of this thing, what we call is the front side of the business models canvas, which is like kind of you have a customer segment, you have value proposition which you pass, like give it to customer or you pass it on to customer. Then the channels through which you are actually delivering that value, or you are through which you are approaching the customer, your customer. The relationships that you want to build throughout your customer journey map, right from your acquisition awareness to acquisition to they showing awareness, interest, acquisition, to delivery, to actual post delivery or post service. So these are some of the areas on the blocks on the customer side, and all these blocks kind of relate to a revenue model, because the customers are the ones who are going to pay you for your services or your product. So that deals with the revenue, and the left hand side block has another 4 blocks which deals with the cost side of this thing, which is one is the what are your key activities that you need to do to deliver your value to your customers, and what are the key activities you need to do to build your channels, what are the key activities you need to do to develop your relationship with the customer. Similarly, for doing these key activities, what are the key resources that you require, and you might need to have some key partners for doing this your activities, and to have some resources. So the key activities, key resources, key partners are the another 3 blocks of customer business model canvas, which is on the left hand side of the block, or we say it's a back side. So where the value gets developed or value gets delivered. So that's the left hand side of the block, or we say back side of the build a business model canvas. And that actually, if you look at it, all of that will contribute to your cost, because your key activities, the key resources, the key partners, there you might have to use some commission. So they are all related to your cost. So these are the 9 blocks of business model canvas. And then I have gone into detail in my video on each of the block, what are the different questions when you want to build that block, what are different questions that you need to ask, and what are different types of customer segments, different types of channels, different types of partners, and so on and so forth. So if anybody has any questions, you can always put it on a chat, and we can take it from there. And we will actually go through the each startups BMC. I think we will be assigning mentors, and once the mentors are assigned, each mentor will work with you to go over the BMC as well as the design thinking principles that we heard last week, and then we could then go ahead and work on that. So, but today, if anybody has any questions, just conceptually understanding the BMC. I think some of you might be in a different phase of your startup or a journey, and you might have already developed BMC. So in case you have any different perspective on BMC, also that let's keep it open for discussion. So there is one question I think Prashant has asked: empathy mapping for customers. They needed probably an update of avoiding confusion between suppliers and customers while they are servicing both. It is important to classify them correctly. If you can give some details, it would be great. Is it more to design thinking, or is it more to the BMC? I think if we have Madhav Dapke and the team also, they can answer, or maybe Sudhir, you could take this question.
Well, if it relates to the customers, then basically empathy maps is what are the pain points of the customer, who is the customer talking to, what is the customer, what are the criteria by which they decide, what are the thoughts going on the minds of the customer at that point in time. So there are, just as we have the business model canvas, there's also a customer empathy canvas easily available on the web. And similar to the BMC, it has 4 or 5 different compartments that I just alluded to. Which would be like, what is she thinking? Who is she talking to? Where was she before she came to this particular juncture, and so on. So that's what the empathy map is, to be able to understand the mindset and the mental model of the customer. Mental model is basically how the customer thinks the world works. And we all have somewhat different mental models. So that's what it gets into. So again, the intent of that is to be able to arrive at a more accurate customer persona. Yeah. And the more focused your persona is, then the better your communication with the customer is going to be in terms of your advertising, in terms of your promotion, the better your job design, the job to be done. That is going to be, because now you understand exactly who the user is, what that particular user's pain points are, and what are the emotional as well as the social contexts within which this particular problem is going to be solved. So empathy map just adds that little bit extra to the customer persona.
Just to add to what Sudhir mentioned, I think there is a question about more empathy map and about the suppliers and the customers. From the BMC perspective, if you look at from the BMC perspective, your customers will be on a right-hand side of the block, whereas your suppliers will come from the left-hand side, because they will become your key resources kind of a thing, or a key partners who supply you the material, raw material, or supply you the services. So they will come on the left-hand side of the block. So that's one differential, because you don't, the suppliers don't come in the front side of the business model canvas or the business plan. That's one differentiator I can mention about from the BMC perspective on this. So, and I think Sudhir did cover exactly on the empathy map from this thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay and Sudhirji. So let me elaborate the question a bit more with an example that the team was asking. So this team specifically delivers homemade food. So one part of their chain is the housewife who prepares the food, and then the second part is the customer whom they deliver the food. So their question was, do these housewives and the end customer who is consuming the food, are they both their customers, or are the housewives suppliers and then the customers are the people who are eating the food? And how do they?
It's the latter, the housewives who are preparing the food, they will be the suppliers. And then, of course, the people who are ordering the food and consuming it, those would be the customers. And there again, in terms of the empathy map, like, why are these people ordering this particular food? Is it lack of resources? Is it because, they cannot do it? Is it, so that's what's important to identify. And then that will segue into the job to be done. Okay, now there could be 10 different reasons why people are ordering this food. In which case there could be 10 different segments which may have nothing in common. I could be a widower, wishful thinking, not, and therefore I'm ordering food. Or, I could be ordering food because, I don't have the cooking facilities, or I'm in a different city, whatever it may be. So in each case, the job is different, the context is different. And therefore, you may need to identify 3 or 4 key personas. Not all, you possibly cannot cover all, but something that you think would account for 80-90% of your revenues, and then stick with it.
Perfect. Yep. Any other questions from the teams?
So who was it that asked the question? Ask them if their doubt has been put to rest, or I forgot who it was.
Yashraj. Is Yashraj on the call?
Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
We are the team joining out here.
Okay.
Am I
Yeah.
audible?
Yep.
Sir, yes, sir. We were just confused because we were a platform. So are they both the customers? But now we are clear that they are the suppliers and they don't need to be indulged in customer segment.
Yeah, they won't be come under. They will come under your left-hand side of the block.
Yes, sure. Sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Any other questions? You can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and ask questions. Please feel free to ask. This is your time when you can solve all your doubts. So please make good use of this time.
So this 1 hour, we have kept it as a common time because the questions could be common. Even if one person has a question, that answer could be applicable to rest of you. And that's the reason we have this 1 hour slot. If there are fewer questions, we can go on to the next slot, which is a breakout session where we'll have a direct interaction between companies and mentors. But this 1 hour is really intended for all the questions. Now we have had 3 videos or 3 weeks of videos posted, starting from our very first week. So feel free to ask questions on the previous material as well. Although I don't think Madhav is on the call. Anybody from the last week's design thinking discussion that's on the call to answer questions if they come up?
I can take those questions, sir.
Okay, good, Murali. So the teams are open to asking questions on all the 3 topics, but prioritize the questions for today's discussion, which is on BMC. Vijay is here, and we want to really make use of his time to answer any questions on BMC. And I'm hoping that he has also given assignment in that video, right, Vijay?
Actually, the assignment is to prepare a BMC, which I mentioned at the end of the video. But I think we have the assignment that they can work on it this week as well as they can work on it coming week also. I think we have a breakout session for our BMC next, and there is a 1 week break also in between, I think.
Correct. So those teams who have started working on BMC by using all the information that Vijay has shared in his video, you may have faced some questions just like the question that came up in terms of
is that
how to use this.
Hansraj on the call also?
Yep, they're on the call.
Hansraj, your question was on the customer and customer segments. Are you there? Can you come on the or start your video? I don't think they are there on the call.
I think his question was on empathy mapping, Vijay.
No. There was his question was he has sent it on a mentor-mentees group, and that was about customer segments and this thing. Where I wanted to ask him whether farmers are his customers, which is right, but I don't think FPOs and those are his customers at this point in time, based on what he has sent me the pitch deck. Okay, I will take it offline with him.
Yeah, so the other thing that I want to sort of point out is these mentors are really very experienced people. They are really busy in their lives, their professions, and they're making themselves available for these presentations and for answering your questions. So I really want all the teams to be absolutely there on every call. We have 1 call a week. Just make sure all teams are there, because without that, this is not going to be as useful to you. And you have taken up 1 slot. I mean, there are hundreds of teams who have applied for this program. You have been selected for this. So please make use of all this time that the mentors are devoting to you. If there is some reason that you're not able to attend, talk to your mentors. We'll be assigning mentors to you, and make sure you are keeping everybody in the loop in terms of why you are not able to attend.
Yeah.
Any
There's a
other questions?
I think there is a
Go ahead.
question from the chat, Devratta
Yeah, that's
Pradhan.
what I was reading. So, Krishna Das, can you elaborate a bit more on what your customers did not believe on?
Sir, may I speak, sir? Good morning.
Sure.
Good morning and good evening to all of you. Really, thanks. So basically, we work on technologies which is kind of advanced. So people generally don't believe they do exist. For example, one of our face masks we have introduced this kind of elimination of kind of viruses. They believe that face mask is for filtration. So there's a blind spot when we talk about that empathy mapping with the customers. So that blind spot is how we can really kind of overcome that blind spot and get a connection with the customers. That's what I believe. My question is all about.
Hello, can I? Yeah, sir, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Mrinal. Go ahead, Mrinal.
Yeah, so actually, very good, pain point you have raised here, because when we ask I have seen one Steve Jobs video as well, where he has mentioned that customer really doesn't know what they want. And that's why probably that was the disruptive innovation of iPhone, because earlier we didn't know what is a smartphone. If Steve Jobs would have told also to somebody that he's coming up with such product, nobody would have believed it. So there could be some such the customers who don't believe in your idea, who don't believe in your product. They cannot visualize. Basically, it could be because of it's your service, it's not tangible product. So and even if it is tangible like iPhone, smartphone, they may not believe it. But then you need to create awareness, create some prototype, and make them help them to visualize that those benefits. And then they would come up, because see, sometimes when you build the product to address their pain points, their empathy mapping is important, because you should know what product you should be built which will address their needs, or solve their problems. But if you are proactively building something like, for example, like iPhone, then customer really doesn't know what the product is about, right? So it both the ways. If you are serving somebody's unmet need, or addressing some problem, you need to understand the problem, and that is where empathy comes in. But the person doesn't know what the problem is. That is the biggest problem. Sometimes customer don't know what their actual problem is, and then because they know, like, okay, their profits are declining, their costs are going high, so they want to address those. But actually, root cause analysis should be done, and for that root cause, you need to deep dive into their story. What story they have, which is leading to that problem. And that is what, when we say we need to empathize with the customer.
So thanks for that input. But Steve Jobs' story is really, Steve Jobs was an exception. So I wouldn't really encourage startups to just keep thinking, because it's very common that, and I'm a founder myself, it's very common in founders to go with the belief that you have found something, and once you bring the product to market, that everybody is going to buy it. But that's a wishful thinking in 90% cases. Steve Jobs was an exception. You need to have that kind of, we call it a muscle, in a company or in a corporation or in a person, to come up with something where you say, okay, I'm going to disrupt that market completely, in a way that my customers don't know what they want. But for most of us, for most of the founders, customer is God. That's the other saying.
Yeah.
You have to really listen to your customers, and otherwise there might be a huge surprise once you work on your product. You spend a lot of efforts, money on that, and then you come up with a product and you see that the market is not there. Either you are ahead of the market or you are behind the market. So 90% cases, you have to make sure that you're talking to the customer. I would say 99.9% cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
That unless you have that muscle.
Yeah, I really didn't mean like customer doesn't know anything. Where I was coming from, that point, not 1%, where actually you are building some novel product which nobody knows. But here, when we say empathy, if you are addressing the existing problem, to find out that problem, you really need to empathize.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I think a lot of these things would become clearer once they understand the job to be done concept,
Right.
because over there you're tying your product to the job that the customer wants done in a very explicit, unambiguous manner. And I think that clears away a lot of the confusion. So if we can wait
That's
a week, I think that might help.
Okay. There is one, somebody had sent me an email, Raj. Is it Mom's Kitchen or something like that? Is it Prashant? Who is,
So I think that Prashant is Prashant Belwarkar.
no, Mom's,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yashraj. Okay. So I think Raj, as somebody had sent me an email about your BMC. So I did look at your BMC. There is one thing you could further define, like you have defined your one of the customer segment as okay. Before we go into customer segment, I think the template that you have taken for BMP is wrong. Actually, you have taken a lean business canvas template. There is a difference between lean business canvas and a business model canvas. So please relook at, because the entire video of what I presented is about business model canvas, whereas you have taken the problem, solution, competition, then a couple of there are 4, 5, 6 blocks are similar, but there are channels and customer relationships are missing from your BMC, whereas key partners are missing from your BMC, key activities. So I think you need to pick up this right template about the BMC. I think Devratta, one point is we could send them the strategy as a template.
Yep.
Okay, just put that onto the Slack. So
Sure.
that's one thing about your. I did look at your BMC. One of the things you have mentioned customer segment as employees. I think employee sector or something like that, if I remember. Okay. See, employee sector is a vast customer segment. Within that, who are you actually targeting? You need to kind of further refine that employee sector target customer segment into what kind of employees are you looking at? I don't think you are looking at employees who are having somebody, their spouse or mother is cooking for them at home. So they may not be your customer to be, they may once in a while, but majorly your customers are those who are single, bachelors, some of those things. So try to refine your customer segment. And I think next week's this thing will further make it clear as to job to be done. Once you define why you need to have a separate customer segment well defined, because the job to be done will be differ from each customer segment. And that's where actually there is one concept of product market fit. Okay. If you define your job to be done well, if you define your customer segment well, you can define your jobs to be done well, and then only you can define your market product. So to do the market fit, I think it all goes hand in hand.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So please do revisit your BMC completely on that.
Yes, we will do.
Okay, Nikhil has raised hand. Nikhil, do you have a question?
Yes, yes. Vijay ji, Sudhir ji, as we are discussing about the BMC, Devdatta, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
you are Nikhil.
Yes. So I was just thinking, because we have a complete mixed blend of all the startups. So beginner, intermediate, and some award-winning startups also. So BMC or the now just we have observed one startup have wrongly picked up that lean business canvas model.
Right.
So before just reaching out to the BMC assignment of the next week, can we ask them to have the SWOT analysis of the co-founders and their company as on date, so that it will be a ready reckoner for the mentors to understand whom they are dealing with?
I think, yeah, it makes sense. Maybe Nikhil, you can explain a little more on the exactly what you are wanting the startup founders to prepare. Okay. So if that is the case, I see your point, because sometimes if they ask a question and we as a mentors, all of us may or may not know their exact product or solution or their value proposition. So if you are asking a question at the time of asking, you maybe you can just explain. Like there is another question about data delights. We attempted filling a BMC where we have gone wrong. So if they can come on the call, they can show their BMC on the screen, or they can send it to us. We can actually answer them. But just looking at the BMC, sometimes also we will not be able to tell you whether you have gone wrong or something. We will need to have a pitch deck, which is kind of or some couple of slides on what is your value proposition really to the customers. So that will give us some idea about your startup, what is all about. So what, Nikhil, you are talking about is what, like strength, weakness, opportunity, threats, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. So
Okay.
if it is allowed, I can speak in a regional
Sure.
language because majority of the startups are from the Marathi background.
Sure.
So yeah. So participants जेवढे स्टार्टअप्स आणि इनोव्हेटर्स जे आहेत या कोहोर्ट मध्ये आता या सेशन मध्ये समजून घ्या की तुम्हाला तुमच्या मेंटॉरशी किंवा जे काही कीनोट स्पीकर आहे त्यांच्याशी डील करण्याआधी तुम्हाला स्वतःलाही जर लक्षात आलं की ऍज अन इंडिव्हिज्युअल ऍज स्वतःची की तुमच्या को फाउंडरशी तुम्ही एकापेक्षा जास्त जर लोक असाल त्या पर्टिक्युलर आयडियावर काम करणारे तर तुमचे स्ट्रेंथ काय आहेत, कुठल्या गोष्टीमध्ये तुम्हाला तुमचा पिंड आहे, कुठल्या तुमच्या विकनेसेस आहेत, कुठे तुम्ही कमी पडतायत. फॉर एक्झाम्पल काही जण डेव्हलपमेंट मध्ये खूप चांगले आहेत पण काही एक्सप्लेन करायला कमी पडतायत. काही तुमच्याकडे तुम्हाला तुमच्या बिझनेस तुमच्या अकॉर्डिंगली म्हणजे तुम्ही ऍज अन को फाउंडर म्हणून काय वेगळं कॉन्ट्रीब्युशन देऊ शकताय टीम मध्ये ते. आणि हे सगळं करत असताना की तुम्हाला कुठला थ्रेट वाटतोय की तुमच्यामुळे एखादा काही गोष्ट जसं आपण थ्रेट म्हणतो किंवा ज्याला आपण चॅलेंज म्हणतो की ते चॅलेंज येऊ शकतं. सो सम इट माइट बी सम म्हणजे बिहेव्हिअरल गोष्टी असतील. तर स्ट्रेंथ, विकनेस, ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज अँड चॅलेंज ऑर थ्रेट या गोष्टीवर स्वतःचं जर मॅपिंग केलं, पुन्हा एकदा सांगतो, स्ट्रेंथ म्हणजे तुमच्याकडे काय महत्वाचा तुमचा पिंडा आहे तो. विकनेस म्हणजे तुमच्याकडे टीम मध्ये असताना सुद्धा काय कुठल्या गोष्टीत कमीपणा आहे तो. तुम्हाला कुठली संधी उपलब्ध करून तुम्ही देऊ शकताय टीम मध्ये, एक व्हॅल्यू कॉन्ट्रीब्युशन जे देऊ शकताय. आणि चॅलेंजेस की आणखीन काय तुम्हाला ऑब्झर्व होतं ऍज अन इंडिव्हिज्युअल तुम्ही या टीमचा पार्ट असताना. हे सगळं करत असताना ऍट द सेम टाइम तुम्ही ज्या आयडियावर काम करताय त्या आयडियाचं सुद्धा जर स्वॉट अनालिसिस केलं तर तुम्हाला लक्षात येईल. आणि जेव्हा तुम्हाला मेंटॉर जेव्हा असाइन केले जातील आमच्याकडून, त्या मेंटॉर्सला सुद्धा लक्षात येईल की नक्की कुठल्या लेवल म्हणणं योग्य नाही ठरणार पण कुठल्या स्टेजला तुम्ही आहात सध्या, को फाउंडर्स आणि त्यांची आयडिया कुठल्या स्टेजला आहे. कारण बिझनेस कॅनव्हास मॉडेल इट इज डेफिनेटली अ प्रिलिमिनरी पार्ट तुमच्या पर्टिक्युलर आयडियाला समजून घेण्यासाठी स्ट्रक्चर्ड वेने. पण त्याला तुमच्यापर्यंत आणण्यासाठी किंवा तुम्ही त्या बिझनेस कॅनव्हास मॉडेल पर्यंत व्यवस्थितपणे पोहोचण्यासाठी त्याला जर म्हणजे हा जर कनेक्ट जर तुम्ही करू शकलात, तुमचं स्वॉक अनालिसिस इंडिव्हिज्युअल आणि तुमच्या आयडियाचं स्वॉक अनालिसिस, तर ते मेंटर्सला एक रेडी रेकॉनर, एक रेडी गोष्ट राहील रेडी रेफरन्ससाठी की त्यांना कुठल्या पद्धतीने तुमच्याशी डील करायचंय.
Sure.
ओव्हर टू यू विजयजी.
Thank you, Nikhil. So I hope मला वाटतं सगळ्या आपल्या स्टार्टअपला कळलेलं आहे निखिलने काय म्हटलं. त्यांनी एक स्वॉट म्हणून असतं, एक आय थिंक बऱ्याच जणांना स्वॉट हा टर्म पण माहिती असेल. पण ॲज निखिल सेड, स्वॉट म्हणजे स्ट्रेंथ, विकनेसेस, ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज आणि थ्रेट्स. तर स्वॉट यू कॅन डू इट फॉर युअर सेल्फ, म्हणजे यू ॲज अ स्टार्टअप फाउंडर. आणि स्वॉट यू कॅन डू इट फॉर युअर आयडिया ऑल्सो. आणि जर का ते केलं तर ऍटलीस्ट तुम्हाला पण आयडिया येईल की आपण व्हॉट आर वी गेटिंग इन टू, म्हणजे आपल्याकडे ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज काय काय आहेत. आणि आपल्याकडे थ्रेट्स म्हणजे कॉम्पिटिशन कॅन बी अ थ्रेट. आपण एक कॉम्पिटिशन म्हणतो ना, दॅट इज अ थ्रेट की somebody will also take a part of your business. So that's a threat. Or some threats could be external threats किंवा काहीतरी आपले regulations आहेत, that could be a threat. Or something like a catastrophe or something which is like a event like COVID kind of a situation, that could be a threat which is suddenly comes. So these are the different threats that are there. So हे जर का तुम्ही केलं तर त्याच्यावर पण ते पण डिफरंट अनालिसिस होईल तुमचं. आणि it will be helpful to the mentors, as Nikhil was saying, to immediately understand your startup. तर आपण पुढे जाऊयात. दाता डिलाइट्स कोण आहे का?
Yes, they are on the call.
ओके. हॅलो मिस्टर. तर तुमचं काय म्हणजे तुमचं व्हॉट इज युअर startup is all about? If you can tell us in 1 minute or 2 minutes. आणि then what is the your query about BMC? कुठे रॉंग म्हणजे तुम्हाला काय वाटतंय की कशात तुम्ही रॉंग गेला असाल? कारण की आय हॅव नॉट सीन युअर BMC टू बी फ्रँक येट. अच्छा, ओके.
BMC म्हणजे आम्ही जितकं आम्हाला समजलं तुमच्या व्हिडिओवरनं आम्ही समजू शकलो त्याप्रमाणे आम्ही फिलअप केला BMC.
Okay.
All blocks of them thoughtfully.
Okay.
पण जोवर experts like you don't work with, we might not know where we have gone wrong. आम्हाला आता तरी या घटनेला काही अशी शंका नाही आहे की म्हणजे काही डाऊट नाही आहे की कुठे आम्ही चुकलो असू म्हणून. पण ते एक्सपर्ट्सनी बघितल्यानंतरच कदाचित त्याच्यातनं फ्लॉज काढू शकतो की इकडे तुम्ही चुकलात. मग त्याप्रमाणे
Okay.
आम्ही त्याला मॉडिफाय करू शकतो.
Okay, sure. I think we still have some time. तुम्ही काय Slack वर अपलोड केलंय का कशावर अपलोड केलंय?
मी ड्राईव्हवर अपलोड केलंय. देवदत्तनी जे लिंक पाठवली आहे असाइनमेंट्स अपलोड करायला त्या ठिकाणी अपलोड केला. डाटा डिलाइट
देवदत्त, can we just quickly, I think आणि जरी तो प्रिलिमिनरी स्टेजला असेल आणि तरी सुद्धा लेट्स नॉट डोंट थिंक की आम्ही जेव्हा इनपुट देऊ तेव्हा डोंट टेक इट इन अ kind of negative way or something.
sir,
It's just
not at
no. I'm just telling you so that since we are going to open your BMC right up front here, Devdatta, if you
Please,
can
sir,
open
please, we'll be glad
there,
about it.
yeah, it will be good for you because
Correct.
we will look at it objectively. That will also help the other startups की कसं आपण BMC कडे बघतो. Okay.
सर मी 2 मिनिटात ब्रीफ करू आमचा आयडिया काय आहे ते म्हणजे तुम्हाला
Okay,
BMC
चालेल.
कनेक्ट करू शकता.
Okay, चालेल.
Okay, so we intend to manufacture Marathi traditional dish that is thali pit
Okay.
on a large scale, and we have eliminated rice and wheat from the composition, from the
Okay.
ingredients, to make it more beneficial for people who are diabetic, who are pre-diabetic, or who want to lose weight, or who are fitness conscious, health conscious. So अशा लोकांसाठी एक त्या लोकांना आम्ही ह्याच्यात ठेवून ऍज अ कस्टमर सेगमेंट हा प्रोडक्ट आता डेव्हलप केला आहे. त्याचे न्यूट्रिशनल फॅक्ट्स वगैरे सगळे काढून झाले आहेत. दे आर व्हेरी एनकरेजिंग. तर आता ह्याला स्केलअप करायचं आहे. सध्या आम्ही B2C करत आहोत झोमॅटो, स्विगीवर, आणि प्रतिसाद पण खूप छान आहे. तर त्यामुळे आम्हाला त्याला स्केलअप करायचं आहे.
Okay.
आणि त्या हिशोबाने आम्ही BMC फिलअप केला.
Okay, चालेल. Good. Just based on what I understood, Sudhirji, you wanted to, you are muted currently.
No, I didn't have anything to say. That's
Oh,
fine.
I thought your hand, you raised your hand.
No.
So that's fine.
That's okay.
Okay, so Devdatta, can we get the BMC? Okay, just to the right hand side, Laza. See, there is one more thing. The way normally, if you have to explain your BMC to somebody, the way you start is okay. That like where do you start? Normally, लोक हे पण कधी कधी माहित नसतं स्टार्टअपला की आपण BMC कसं एक्सप्लेन करायचं. Okay, so the way you start is you start with a block of value proposition, because that is the core of your startup. Like, what is the value proposition that you are positioning? Then the next segment, next block you take is a customer segment. So the whom you are passing on that value to, or whom you are servicing. So first block you explain the value proposition, second you explain this customer segment, then you talk about the channels, how do you reach out to your customers, then you talk about the relationships, how will you maintain the relationship to the customer throughout your journey of customer, like right from awareness creation to the actual doing a sale and post sales. So that is the 4 block you explain. Then you go to the right and left hand side, you state that what are the key activities that I have, what are the key resources that I will require to deliver those activities, and who are the key partners that are there. And then you talk about the revenue models and the cost. So this is how you explain your BMC. Now let's look at your value proposition. Also, preferably value proposition also can be, you are talking, let's look at it. Only of its kind, single product that is wholesome, nutritious, delicious food. Traditional known to be good for controlling PP sugar levels. Okay. Aid in weight loss, made with millets, legumes, best of combinations, gluten-free, no rice, no white added, vegan, no animal product, project that has a social cause attached, bring people with disability and profit making. While this is good, I think you have covered a lot of value that you will, these are some of our features, and there is one during my video, I talked about one concept, not concept, it's really these are the three terms that we use quite often. as a technologies or as technical founders, they normally talk about features of your product. Okay, there are features then turn into benefits for the customer, and benefits then turn into the value to the customer. So normally when you look at from the customer perspective, customer always looks at what value he or she is getting. Whereas from the our perspective, we say that what features we are passing on to the customer. So there is a little, just remember these three terms and how they are interlinked. Okay. So in some of these things, you have put the features also in this, as well as the benefits and values. So try to create the values. I think in our couple of weeks down the line, when we talk about value proposition framework, at that time, we will also build our value proposition statement. And I just touched upon it during the video for a minute or so when I was recording my video, is about there is a statement that talks about what are the job to be done, what are the differentiators or who are the competitors, and what is the value you are passing on. So all that in under the one value statement that we will talk about later. This thing. Now, can you go to your customer segments? Just Devratta, if you can move to the customer segments. Yeah, diabetic, pre-diabetic, overweight, especially. See, now here you mentioned about who do not find enough time to cook. Is that really a essential part?
May not be, because
Yeah.
many times it happens that people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic also find cannot manage to find time to cook diabetic friendly food. They may not really buying a ready-made food and ready to eat food.
Okay,
So
I think
that's how I thought of narrowing the segment.
Sure. No problem. I think the customer segments, I personally feel like looking at it for the first time and understanding your value proposition. I think it looks to be well defined. Okay. Because there are three different customer segments. Well, where what I'm seeing on the screen, because the diabetic, pre-diabetic type of people they can be across any age group and other things, whereas the health and fitness people, they have a specific need, and that's where you are targeting that. And the working class youngsters are basically they are not diabetic, they are also not health fit, but still it could be a quick bite, and some of those things will come into picture. And senior citizens who are ailing with diabetes and others who do not have access to healthy, I think that one and the first one could go together, unless you have a specific reason for creating a separate customer segment for senior citizens. Because I think that can go under the first one itself, or you can mention unless you have a specific value proposition for senior citizen itself. Okay, there you do not mention then who are ailing with diabetes, because senior citizens is a separate block you are looking at as a customer segment, because you are already covered who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, and overweight. That comes across all the ages, right? From some of the nowadays there are diabetic students also, or kids also, who have a diabetes at the age of 5 and 6 and this thing. And there are diabetes patients also at the age of 70, 80 also. So you are covering the entire spectrum in the first block itself. Okay, unless you have a specific value proposition for senior citizens, then you can create that as a customer segment block. Otherwise, you don't need to. I think this is what okay, let's look at the channels. Channels is the basically how do you reach out to this customer segment for your value proposition? So you're talking about live vending cards, okay, by women, differently abled people, retail outlets, gymnasiums, hospitals, travel agencies, pharmacist, okay, corporate CSI unit from private, instantly healthy meals in schools. Okay, good. I think looks fairly right as an initial this thing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then go to the relationships. See, channels also, like sometimes you can just go down Devatta for channels. Are those all, or they are this online sales? Okay, that's what I was coming to, because I didn't see that. So these are all fairly right channels to reach out to the customer. Is there normally there are some food outlets? Have you retail outlets you have mentioned, but there are some food outlets which are specifically for healthy people, or
Okay.
there is a special chains which are only for the health conscious
Okay.
food outlets.
You mean eateries?
Yeah, and not eatery is always more than eatery. It's more like retail sales.
Okay. Okay.
So you have mentioned retail outlets, but retail
Yeah,
outlets
yeah.
can be general outlets also. But since your target,
I in the second category I mentioned healthy food product retailers.
okay, good. Then you have covered that part. Okay. Okay, I think this seems fairly okay. Even if there is anything further, I can look at it more detail. Well, can you go to customer relationships? A feedback model to be designed and uploaded on all possible platforms or continuous improvement at the same time, keep adding to the product range. See, this is, you can improve this block little to some extent. See, the way
Okay.
you need to look at building this block is, how will you make customers aware of your product first? Okay. So what are the mechanism to make them aware? And if you create suppose you say there's a vending cart, that is where how you are selling it to the customer, your channel for sales. But how do you make them aware? So through social media, you will do some campaigns or some of these things. So awareness is one fact in building relationship with customer. Second thing is, how do you create an interest in the customer's mind? Okay. So how do you attract them to purchase your product? Then at the time of selling, what kind of relationship you have? And at the time of post sales. So you need to start looking at this block from that perspective. Like, how will you maintain those relationships with the customer? Because you want to retain. This is more like a B2C customer. Okay. One of the aspect of B2C customer that you really need to see is, and yours is kind of a one-off product. Okay.
Yes.
Very niche product and this thing. So it is important for you to retain your customers over a longer period of time.
True.
Okay. So that you need to also look at how much is the churn. Normally in the B2C, there's a lot of churn that happens on the customer side. So you really need to focus on how are you going to retain your customer. And to retain your customer, you need to build that relationship with the customer right from the awareness to the post sales. And even after somebody has bought, you can say that, why didn't you feedback? You mentioned one about feedback is that is after sales kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. But you also need to look at all other aspects of the customer journey that you will be building relationships. So that this block you can modify a little bit further.
Sure. We'll work on it.
Yeah. Go to the left hand side block, then we'll come to the revenue and cost. Yeah. So on key activities, production of 5 variety of thali in frozen form. Acha, you are giving it in frozen form.
Yes, sir, frozen form, because the shelf life of the product will be good enough in frozen form.
Okay.
It will be like 100% cooked. One has to only heat it and then consume.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marketing and promotion of Thalipit. Okay. Training and skill development of all staff. Recruitment of PWD. PWD, what is?
Sir, PWD is people with disabilities.
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry to use that.
Yeah, because PW has other meaning also in a general
Yes.
sense. In India, PWD refers to the Public Works Department. That's why I got confused. How did PWD comes into here? Training them and their inclusive operation of Talele vending stores for PWD. Okay. See, other activities that you can think of is, one is quality assurance is kind of missing. How do you maintain the quality? And once you are looking at scaling this, okay, the production, okay, how are you going to scale it? And for that, do you require any activities to be done? Okay, so that's a couple of points that I could think to be added here. Okay. Let's look at the key partners for the key resources. Okay, funds for acquiring space, plant, machinery, working capital, training, erection of live stalls. Okay, statutory activities, human resources. Okay. Yeah, I think certification will become a other factor, main factor. Like how does your product, which you mentioned about accreditation,
Yeah.
okay, how does your product actually ensures that what you are saying
Yeah.
is a fact?
Yeah.
Okay, like after consuming thali pits, the levels of sugar levels post lunch or post eating, PP kind of sugar,
Yeah.
are they under control? Are they coming down? And also there is a factor in normally in a lot of times when what you eat in diabetes conditions is it's thali pit along with something.
Ah.
Okay, there's a lot of actually factor that comes in. There is one great startup which is being done out of Pune, and it is being actually spearheaded by one of our Garje Marathi member also, is Nikhil Jakatdar. I think he is doing something in Pune, and he's a multi-billion-dollar serial entrepreneur. So he is starting into a healthcare segment, and he has his own blogs. If you can look at his blogs, it talks about on diabetic itself. He has a lot of blogs. Okay, so there you can look at it. So basically, your one is quality control. Second is actually how do you certify this,
Okay.
that your product is really contributing to the, because that's your customer segment and your major value proposition is you are trying to create this as a hygienic product and something which will be helpful as a health conscious food product.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it is might be requiring that.
Yeah. So actually we need to get the clinical trials done for this
Right.
product, which is again an expensive affair. So we need resources for that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What you have mentioned, the resources are fairly okay.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, as a quality control and the cost, something you'll have to also think about from that perspective. And not cost, the certification.
Certification.
And just a thought that came to my mind, which I mentioned, was about look at just not thali pit. Somebody eating thali pit with an ice cream, it's not going to help.
True.
Okay.
True.
So can we look at quickly look at the key partnerships? So I'm just trying to go through this in detail so that even other startups and आपल्या बरोबर जे बाकीचे आहेत त्यांना पण कळेल की how do one looks at the BMC. Okay. So key partners are farmers, FPOs into millets and legumes. This is for your suppliers kind of a thing, raw material. Wholesalers of spices, frozen food distributors. Okay. Contract job workers of frozen foods. Why? How will you have a partner as a workers, or will you do outsource? Is it kind of an outsource?
Yeah, like it may happen that initially we may have to outsource the manufacturing until we kind of put up our own unit. Or if that works out to be better than setting up our own unit, then we may also.
No, that's that. Then you won't do with the workers directly, but yeah, you could. But normally,
workers, I'm talking about the organizations as
that's
such,
what. So that's where I was saying. Now
Yeah,
it says workers. So you might mean to go to
I used the wrong word.
Yeah, that's why when I looked at it, I felt it is you are just talking about workers. I think maybe you can say frozen food outsource vendors kind of a thing.
I should have said manufacturers.
Manufacturers, yeah.
Contract manufacturers.
Right. And how is this frozen food retailers and healthy food outlets become your key partners, because they are also your customers?
Yeah, I had a doubt here. So
Yeah, because see, if they are your customers, they won't be coming to this block.
See, how I looked at it is frozen food retailers will be buying them from us and reselling. So
that's still okay, but buying they are paying you for that this thing, right?
Yeah.
So they are your customers.
But they are not consuming.
They will not come here because partners are something who will help you to deliver the product.
Okay.
Develop and deliver your activities, and they will become, they will be supplemental to your resources.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Non-profit organizations like kind of involved in placing people, that is fine. Corporates through CSR divisions. That is
I was wondering, these big corporates have their campaigns.
Understood.
So,
I think that
yeah.
that makes sense to have it here.
Yeah,
Trust and
yeah,
society,
yeah.
insurance, reliance on PWD. Okay, it's fairly okay. Other than that, just the job workers and the frozen food retailers and healthy food outlets.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's look at the cost and revenue. So revenue earned will be totally volume dependent, B2C model, live stalls at populated corporate areas. Insurance sales, wholesale supply, major players. Okay. It's mostly your this thing will be different models, but it will be like direct supplying the Thalipit as a product, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like we've thought of both the models, B2C and B2B. B2C is like directly selling to the customer and consumer, and B2B like outlets and all.
So it is again B2B2C, you can say, kind of,
Yeah.
because it's like
Yes.
ultimately, yeah, it's going to your consumers.
Yes, yes,
So it's a B2B2C model.
yes.
And okay. See, did you get a chance? I think I will ask this question to not only to you, Datar, this thing, but also to all the startups. There is a one thing I mentioned about, there is a link I gave in my presentation about 55 business models. Okay, it's really nice. I think if you can look at each of those business model, all the startups, and look at which ones are really applicable to your business.
Sure, sure.
Okay, and then put some of those also, think about some of them, whether like you start going through, is this applicable to my business model?
Okay.
Is this applicable to my startup? Is this applicable to my startup? And you start, because that way it will help you to also look at what kind of business models are there to generate revenues, as well as it will help you to find out exactly different models which you can really apply for your startup. Okay, this is kind of okay, but it also whether you are selling as a individual unit or you are selling as a group of Thalipit at a lump sum, that is one thing will come in. Where are your wholesalers you are talking about? So that entire supply chain you have to then build from your manufacturing to wholesaler to retailers to the consumers. Okay, and cost are very simple. All whatever you have, your key activities resources, they will contribute to the cost. Okay, I think looks fine. The overall looks fine to me. Few areas where I give my inputs in immediately. If any one of our mentors wants to add to this value, I think they are all welcome also.
Actually, Vijay, it's really nice that you went through this in detail, because that also explains it to the rest of the startups. So I think that complements the video that you had posted. Right. We had planned a 1 hour of a Q&A and 1 hour for a breakout. Devdutt, are we going to do breakout rooms today?
We can do breakout rooms, but we don't have mentors assigned. So for today, we can randomly assign some mentors who can give you a more focused feedback. And then from next week, we'll have a dedicated mentor assigned just for your team. So we can do that.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that, because now we are at 1 hour dot. And if any other teams still have more questions on BMC, please go ahead and post that. Mentors like Vijay ji will look at that, and then they'll respond to you, or we can have that those questions taken up in the following session as well.
Sure.
If there are remaining questions.
Ansaraj has asked a question: can we have key partners in customer segment? Not really, because that's exactly what I just mentioned to the Datar team also. Like key partners and key customer segments are kind of well defined. Needs to be separate. Okay, unless they are the unless they are they won't become your key partners, then they will become straight customers. But Ansaraj, I can check back with you later, because I did see your pitch deck and I have some queries about entire customer segment that you have defined in your what you had told me on your in the Slack channel. Okay, so I can take it offline because you have sent me an email on that. We are a product innovation company. Should we also innovate business and revenue model innovation? Pradhan, I think Krishnadas, we can take this offline. Okay, maybe if you can send me your product pitch deck demo, a pitch deck entirely. I can and the BMC together. We can then discuss it.
All right, so I'll be starting 5 breakout rooms for today. And we don't have teams assigned to a particular breakout rooms for today's session. So I would ask teams to divide yourself among the 5 rooms. And for the mentors, I've assigned Vijay ji to room 1, Sudhir ji to room 2, Sanjay ji to room 3, Mandar ji to room 4, and Prashant ji to room 5. So I repeat, Vijay ji room 1, Sudhir ji room 2, Sanjay ji room 3, Mandar ji room 4, and Prashant ji room 5. And for rest of the mentors, please feel free to join any breakout rooms that you prefer. And for startup teams, please divide yourself. If you are in a room where there are a lot of people, come back to the main room and then go back to another breakout room so that you get dedicated time to talk about your startup. So I'll be starting 5 breakout rooms. If you have any issues joining the room, I'll be here in the main room. Let me know.
So Devdutt, after 45 minutes, so at 8:15, let's come back to the main room.
Yep.
So that we can sort of aggregate the common questions that are seen in most of the breakout rooms, and then we'll end up from there. Okay.
Sure.
8:15 California time.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, 8:15 California time. Yes.
Okay, I think Devratta, you are creating the breakout room because we still don't see the link for breakout rooms yet.
No, join breakout room.
Yeah, there is a link there, and now we can join there.
You are not joining any room, no?
I'll be here in the main room for some time.
Okay.
Okay, that's good idea. And if depending on how much discussion is there in each of the rooms, you can monitor that. And if teams want to come back to the main room, we can do that earlier.
I can help them. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Ved. Good to see you. I cannot hear you. Are you on mute?
Sanjay ji?
Yeah.
Sorry, I did not. I was reading some messages here. Sorry, what did you say?
No, I'm in room 3 now. So I'm just checking whether people can hear me. Yeah.
You are actually in the main
I'm
room.
still in the main session.
Yeah, I think you joined with 2 accounts, right? One for audio and.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me do that.
Yes. I don't see the breakout rooms here.
खाली तुम्हाला एक सुधीरजी खाली एक पिंग आला असेल to join breakout rooms.
No, I don't see any.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Nikhil, do you have a question?
No. I'm just lowering down my hands.
Okay. बाकी teams who are here, any issues? तुम्हाला काही help हवी आहे का room मध्ये जाण्यासाठी? कोणाला काही help हवी आहे rooms? Does anyone need any help? Pranav, I am Nagpur, Devendra Zavade, any help? कोणाला काही help हवी आहे?
हॅलो, नमस्कार सर.
हा बोला.
मी जयश्री चौधरी भुसावळवरून बोलते. माझं नेटवर्क मुळे उशिरा जॉईन झालं, तर मला हेच म्हणजे हे रूम्स मध्ये काय प्रॉब्लेम येतो हेच मला कळालं नाही.
ओके, ठीक आहे. मी तुम्हाला एक रूम असाइन करतो. ब्रेकआउट रूम बेसिकली सेपरेट झूम मीटिंग सारखी आहे, जिथे तुम्हाला जाऊन तुमच्या मेंटर सोबत बोलता येईल आणि बेसिकली त्याच्यात छोटा ग्रुप राहील. तर मी तुम्हाला एक रूम असाइन करतोय आता.
हो.
than me.
तुम्हाला रूम 4 मध्ये जाण्यासाठी एक लिंक असा पॉपअप आला असेल तुमच्या स्क्रीनवर, त्याच्यावर क्लिक करा, तुम्ही रूम 4 मध्ये जाऊ शकाल.
मी सर प्रणव बोलतोय. मला कुठल्या रूम मध्ये असाइन केलेलं आहे, कुठली रूम?
सध्या तुम्हाला रॅन्डमली रूम जॉईन करायची आहे. नेक्स्ट वीक पासून आम्ही तुम्हाला डेडिकेटेड रूम सांगू कोणची जॉईन करायची. सो जस्ट जॉईन एनी रूम. I am Nagpur. I'm not sure who is there on the call. On the other side, any issues joining breakout rooms? Fireflies. Anand Zakulwar, Supriya, any issues? Yogesh ji, Milin ji, any issues joining the rooms?
No. I'm just monitoring. Devdatta, I can join any room, right?
Yeah, you can join.